Worm Ohana. Here we are. It's about week 8 or 9, and this is a very critical and also very, very exciting time for us. I decided today what we would do was rip through my bin so you could see exactly what it looks like. I've seen some pictures of your bins lately, and I'm not so sure. Now, I have the perfect bin, but remember, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've done this hundreds of times. So yeah, it's a perfect bin, but there's some things you can do to correct your early mistakes to get as close as you can to what this looks like. Okay, so we're going to go ripping through it. I want you to notice the texture and the worms and everything. So I'll kind of talk you through it. And if your bin does not look like this, I'll make some suggestions on what you can do to get closer. The reason this is a really important time is between week 8 and week 12. The eggs have been laid, the babies have started to hatch, and this is when they start to mature. My goal for you is that when we hit week 12, which will be about first of the year, January 1, I want everybody to have a full pound of adult worms in their bin. So let's aim for that. And this is what it should look like. Now, it's been sitting out here while we were getting ready for the shoot, so the worms have kind of gone down to get out of the light, but I'll dig down deep. So I'm just gonna tear the thing apart, and you're gonna take a real careful look. Okay, bin blanket off. And there's my paper cover. I am always freshening up my paper cover, even when I'm not feeding, because I'm always peeking, you know, and I'm kind of messing up the paper and opening up little areas, so I'm constantly refreshing my paper cover. So when you open up your bin, it should look like this pretty much all the time. I've fed 10 pounds the last 2 weeks. So this was 2 weeks ago, I fed 10 pounds over here, and last week I fed 10 pounds over here. So let's dig around, see what it looks like inside. So first let's look at where it was 2 weeks ago. And there's still a little food residue left. And there's plenty of wormies. And you can see there's lots of, it's not soupy, it's definitely moist, but it's not soupy goopy. Some of your bins look soupy goopy, but notice the amount of cellulose material in there, the amount of paper. Probably you guys did not put in enough base bedding, and that's a real common mistake because you're excited to get your worms in and you don't build it up enough. But you can make up for that by putting in plenty of paper now. Oh look, there's some babies, lots of babies, and most of these guys are adolescents, teenage worms, hungry teenagers, eating like crazy, and they have gone through most of my 2 week ago offering of 10 pounds. There's still a little bit left, and they're still definitely in it, but it's pretty much gone. And I'm seeing a really nice density. Ooh, they're in a pineapple top here. Look at all that fiber. They're in a pineapple top. So your bin should look something like this. Okay, not soupy, not goopy, but moist. And gee, I don't know how to describe this texture. It's moist, but you can definitely see the fiber in it, and that's really important. Okay, everybody see that? Okay, that's 2 weeks ago, and they're into it, and you can see I got lots of worms. So now I'm going to look at what it should look like about a week into my second 10-pound feeding. And you should be feeding somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds for sure by now. We're very established. So back goes the paper. Let's take a look at what it looks like on the fresh side. Yep, that's definitely the fresh side. They've just started to get into it. So I got lots and lots of hungry teenagers. Look at that. If your worm density is not looking something like this now, I suggest you add more food and more rich food if you can. Okay, so this is definitely goopy, but it's not soupy, right? There's enough cellulose material to keep it from getting overly wet. So I dug down a little deeper into the bedding, and you can see the worms are hanging out in pretty dense numbers. So by January 1, for sure, I'll have at least a pound in here. And I'm hoping that even if you've been feeding very, very cautiously, you'll have about a pound as well. So my goal is to have 4 pounds of worms and about 15 pounds of really nice finished vermicast in here. by the end of our project in April. So I'm doing really well. And this is exactly what your bin should look like. So if it doesn't look like this, I suggest you put in more paper. You can put in as much paper as you want. Paper is very neutral. It's going to absorb the excess moisture. It's going to give them places to go. And are you noticing? I mean, what first was little flecks of vermicast that you noticed on the paper is now starting to accumulate in the material. So we're making that transition from food and paper into vermicast. And the worms will ingest the vermicast over and over and over until all of the fiber and all of the food has been digested out of it, and you end up with a very finished vermicast at the end. So that's what it should look like at about 8 weeks. So I hope you're close, and if you're not, the corrections you can make, just more paper, add paper all the time, and that cellulose material will help balance out your issues of too much food or too much moisture. And just a note of caution, the Jervis family had a real crisis when they came to water their worms, and the water was up to here, everything was floating. In this winter weather where we have torrential rains, be really, really careful that your worm bin does not get stuck in the rain, because that amount of moisture coming in really fast cannot get drained out in time, and your worms can drown. It can go anaerobic. You could lose your whole colony. Now, the Jervis rescue team got to it right away. They dumped it all out, they let it drain, and they put a little fresh bedding on the bottom, put a few more pukas in for drainage, put everything back, freshened up with some paper, and everything is fine. So just a note of caution during our winter weather, watch out for torrential rains. And of course, I've just messed this up, so what am I gonna do? Plenty more paper on top. Don't skimp on paper. It's cheap, and it's easy to do, and your worms will love you for it. So lots of paper, right? Lots of paper, lots of food, lots of watering, and lots of babies, okay? Between now and the first of the year, you guys are gonna grow that little ball of worms into a big one. So thanks everybody for submitting your data every week. I really, really appreciate it. We are well over 1,000 pounds, and I'd like to see us get up to that full ton as soon as possible. So again, I urge you, feed a little more, be a little braver with your feeding. I'm seeing some really, really small numbers, but everybody should be between 5 and 10 pounds by now, okay? Can you push it a little? You'll get better results. Fearless feeders get the best results. I was a underfeeder for a long time, and when I finally broke through and became a generous feeder, boy, my worms really were happy about it, and I had way better results. But I do want to say something. I understand there's a continuum, and it has to do with what your goals are and what your household needs are. On my end, where I'm just insane and want to feed them every single scrap of food waste I can get my hands on, and grow as many worms as I possibly can so we can sell them and make more money for the schools and add more fertility to the soil, blah, blah, blah. For somebody crazy for me on this end, I'm going to push them. I'm going to feed them as much as I can. And then the people on this end who I'm still seeing 1, 2, 3 pounds, I recognize that maybe you don't want this huge breeding situation. You just want to keep a few pet worms and feed them a few handfuls and keep them around for your own joy and entertainment. But you're not going to bind yourself to this whole idea of breeding worms, standing in the produce section, trying to figure out which produce, which fruits and vegetables you can pick so that your worms get the best food. Maybe you don't want to do all that, and just keeping a few pet worms is what you want. And that is okay. Nothing wrong with keeping a few pet worms. Nothing wrong with being an insane breeder like me. Most of you are going to be somewhere in the middle where you're trying to compost as much of your household food waste as you can without spending a lot of time and whatever. You're going to be somewhere in the middle. And for you, I say, do what feels right. You know how much food waste your household generates. You have a feeling of what you want to do with this project. Some people want to take it bigger. Some people anticipate there'll be lots and lots of food after the COVID thing. Some people anticipate there won't be so much, don't want to get into it so much. So there is a continuum. So do what feels right for you, but in the next few weeks, everybody feed a little bit more, okay? It would make me happy. And then after we hit January 1, you'll decide what you want to do and how much further you want to go. Thank you. Keep on sending me your data. Let's hit that ton soon.